of all, what is a nerve and its system in our bodies? The nervous system is an organ system containing a network of specialized cells called neurons that coordinate the actions of an animal and transmit signals between different parts of the body. In most animals, the nervous system consists of two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of nerves extending from the central nervous system, and these branch repeatedly throughout the body. So, what is the basic unit of the nervous system? It's the neuron. The neuron. Dendrites are like roots of a tree. They receive the messages and connect to the cell body. The axon relays these messages all the way to the axon terminals, which pass the message to more neurons or muscles and glands, causing them to contract. So how do neurons send nerve impulses? Nerve impulses are essentially the signals, which are the messages. They are conducted along the membranes of neurons through action potentials, which are very rapid changes to the charge of the membrane when stimulated. This progresses along the surface of the neuron. At rest, there is a charge difference across the membrane wall, such that the inside of the cell is more negative than the outside. This is due to differences in ion concentrations inside and outside the cell. Electrical, mechanical, or chemical stimuli change the charge of the neuron at the start. This leads to the opening of sodium channels, allowing sodium ions to flow into the cell, making the cell more positive. This is called depolarization. Then these channels close and potassium channels open up, pumping potassium out of the cell, causing the cell to become more negative, and this is called repolarization. This changes the charge of the membrane region next to it, and so the action potentials are just passed along the neuron. At the end of the axon, there's this junction between the neurons called the synaptic cleft. This is the presynaptic neuron, and this is the postsynaptic neuron, and this is the synaptic cleft, which is the hole. So the arrival of an impulse causes channels to open, and these cause calcium ions to diffuse into the presynaptic neuron. And this causes the sudden release of neurotransmitters, which are molecules in the presynaptic neuron. So the neurotransmitters are released into the synaptic cleft, and they then diffuse across the gap to the postsynaptic neuron, where they bind with receptors on the postsynaptic neuron membrane. This causes a change in charge of the membrane and hence propagation of an action potential, which propagates down the neuron again. So neurons receive stimuli from the environment like fire, ouch, painful, which causes action potentials to be generated and translated along the neurons all the way to the effector organ, just like this muscle, which causes the arm to pull away. It's just like a wave from neuron to neuron. Just like a wave. Action potentials only occur when the membrane is stimulated enough so that the ion channels open fully. The minimum stimulus needed to achieve this action potential is called the threshold. So, how can we reach threshold? There are two main ways: temporal summation and spatial summation. So, temporal summation is basically the transmission of an impulse by rapid stimulation of one or more presynaptic neurons. If the potentials are really close enough together, you'll reach threshold. So, like if this stimulus is weak, it won't reach it, but if it goes like bop bop, two together really quickly, it would reach threshold. Spatial summation is the summation of potentials from many different presynaptic neurons. So, and they all come at the same time, so they're all stimulated at the same time, and so the potential adds up, hence reaching threshold. So it's like a stimulus, then it would reach threshold. So here are here are like three examples of reaching threshold. The first one, threshold wasn't reached. The second one is temporal summation, and the third one is spatial summation.